Terry McLaurin isn't going anywhere. Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now about McLaurin signing, as well as a reaction piece. I don't know if that's up quite yet, but that will be up, a reaction piece to the signing, what it means, why obviously it's so important. I think you know the answer, but there's a lot of stuff in there, but some of which I'm going to talk about here, but all of it will be in the article. And don't forget, the John Keim Report is presented by AAA. Also, I have a read for huel-DOT-com where you can get $10 off by using the promo code Keim. You can get this shirt, folks. They have all sorts of clothing for Commanders fanatics. And if you're a Commanders fanatic, you need to have a shirt like this. You know it. I'll be giving this one away to a club member later in the season. But you can buy shirts, swim trunks, and mesh shorts. So head to chubbysshorts.com/Keim. Hey, there's also a Chubby's Fantasy Football League where the grand champion gets a chance to win a 5-city, 5-stadium NFL game tour with a +1. Sign up at chubbysshorts.com/the Chubbies League to learn more and have some fun. So enough for that. Let's get to the McLaurin signing because, folks, the deal is done and that's what you wanted to hear. So let's go into this. First of all, there was optimism on Sunday that this was going to take place today because we're getting so close to the season that, and at one point I had been told earlier, a couple weeks ago, I wrote a story about like why they were at this impasse, and there were 4 key areas. Well, at the time, I pretty much heard that at some point, Adam Peters has to give him this is the final offer, take it or leave it, but let's go. And so now whether or not I believe that's what happened here, which makes sense because they wanted to get him on the field for Wednesday. This whole thing about the conditioning, and I know I would talk about it, but that's what they're saying, but you knew that it was all tied to the contract, that once the extension was agreed to, that he would be back on the field and get his conditioning work there, because you can do all that while you're practicing. So it doesn't always have to be on the side away from everybody. But as McLaurin had said, he wasn't going to get back on the field until there was progression in the talks. Well, clearly there's now progression. So it's 3 years, up to $96 million with a $30 million signing bonus. Now, be careful with the numbers. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you like who won or lost this contract because we don't know. And here's the other thing. I'm going to get into who won, and it's everybody else because it doesn't matter to, you think Cliff Kingsbury cares if the organization or if Terry McLaurin won this deal? He cares that the guy that he needs to get the ball down the field is back. Same with Jayden Daniels. He doesn't care. He just wants his guy back. So what I do know is, and I told you for a while, like they weren't going to get to a 3 with the front of the number unless it was backloaded. And so there's a chance that it could be the case here, I would believe. And I think that's why I say when it's worth up to 96 million, chances are there's like 9 or 10 million tacked on there to get to a certain average. It allows you to win that headlines and all that. But again, we're not going to know the full details until it's filed with the NFL and we can see how much of it was guaranteed and see really the details of the deal. But what I know is it's less than what he originally wanted, and it's more than what they originally offered. How about that? That's kind of what happens in negotiation. It's probably, I think you could probably go down. I don't know if it's quite in the middle when it's all said and done, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's more in the middle of what they originally offered and what he originally wanted. So, but again, it's when we see the details, then we can react more to the deal. I don't want to sit there and speculate that this could only be a 2-year extension because the 3rd year is this. We don't know that just yet. So maybe by the time this comes out, I'll already know that. Hopefully I do. If not, we'll know it very, very soon. So that will be the tell of this deal. But again, how much to you does it matter who won or lost this deal? Down the road for the franchise, I think it does matter how they handle this because they have other contracts coming up. I think for McLaurin, the key is getting him back on the field. The teams do like to let the agents kind of win the day, get the headlines, and let take their victory lap because it's I think whatever you want to say about this whole situation, Buddy Baker, the agent, got McLaurin more than what they were originally offering and got him probably above. I think I told you a couple weeks ago, I know I told you that what I'd heard is like they could get up to 28 million, maybe 28 and a half or so. And this is if it's it could very well be that the true average is like 29 per year. That's still a little bit more, and it's still more than where they were comfortable going initially. And it's funny because I know there was a player who had talked about, how the negotiations go with Adam Peters, how like you do this, you do a low end first, and you just kind of it's just sitting there, and then boom, here's that final offer. Let's go. And again, I think for the franchise, it makes sense if that was the case, like in this situation, because you want to get him back on the field. You want this taken care of, period, before the regular season practices get going, which begin in earnest, of course, now, but also especially a week from now. So that's why it was important to get it done now, and why it would make sense if they said, hey, this is it. Let's go, take it, leave it. And it's funny because not funny, but I talked to another team source last month, and their thought was he's going to sign eventually because he's not going to want to risk it. And the risk would be, you play out the final year of your deal, and then you go into free agency. Now, would you get what you want? Like when you talk to people around the league, I would have been surprised if he got what he would have wanted, right? So then, could he have gotten a little bit more than what he got here? Maybe, but then what are you risking at that point? Because if you have an injury, if you don't have the same production, now that number goes way down. So they felt like in the end, because listen, if it's not exactly what he wanted, it's still a damn good deal for any receiver, especially, he's going to be 31 when this extension starts. That was always a big number. You'd hear from people in the organization, you hear from people in the league who would say, the league does not like to pay receivers at this point. It's not my rule. It's the NFL. It's how teams handle this. And so that's why you would hear that. So if he got this deal at this stage, that's really good. And it suggests that they clearly believe that his production is going to remain the same. And this is the value of that. And because the one thing they weren't going to do is pay for past production or past misdealings with whatever you had to deal with there with the Snyder organization being the face of the franchise. They didn't care about that. They care about McLaurin. They like having him, but they only cared about what are you now going to do. You have to remain productive. You cannot get in the habit of paying guys for past production, knowing that it's going to start to go down. That's what this franchise used to do in the past. They'd keep guys around too long, and then the production would not match what the salary was or what the expectations were. And then what? It looks like you have big names, but you don't have big production, and that you can't have that. So in this case, they have a guy that they feel can produce for certainly this year and then at least the next 2 years. Because really, again, if it's a 3-year extension, typically that third year you're going to be able to get out of and move on if you need to do so. And so if he's not producing, I would feel pretty good that at 31, he's going to be pretty good. And at 32, then let's see where that is. But if it's not, then you can move on after that year. If it's still really good, you get that third year. So, or you redo something else. But this is why, so that to me was another reason for McLaurin to stick around because, first of all, it's finally good. This is finally what you want. Like when Josh Harris took over, the two players they brought to the FedEx, at the time, FedEx field for the press conference was John Allen and Terry McLaurin because they had been through the ringer. And they were the guys who always were out there talking. And this is what they would all both say, like, this is what they've been waiting for. You could feel the excitement within them. Now, it got way better the next year when you bring in Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, and then Jayden Daniels. And I told you before, like, watching Terry talk about Jayden Daniels after this first spring workouts was like, I've never seen the guy like that. And I remember I saw McLaurin the next day when he's warming up on the field. I was out by the field, said, dude, like, I've never seen you look like this. He goes, he's the real deal. So he knows what he has. And you could just like, I remember talking to him in last August about like what he felt he could have with Daniels, and you could just feel the excitement. Now he didn't want to talk too much about it because he had talked about other quarterbacks he'd had in the past that like, and he would almost have to fake the excitement at times. Didn't have to do this here, and you could see it. Like there was the one play last summer when they're developing a connection where there was he had to throw a back shoulder. Daniels throws a back shoulder fade in practice, and McLaurin is running. It's a back shoulder. McLaurin's going to run a fade, not back shoulder fade, but just back shoulder pass. McLaurin's going to run the fade, but they both read the corner the right way, and then he's anticipating the back shoulder, and Daniels throws the back shoulder. And you could see McLaurin celebrate with gusto after that play because he knew he's on the same page with the quarterback finally. And you saw that throughout the season, right? Like you saw you saw the way Daniels trusted him. And you saw, like, here's the other stat. Daniels attempted 46 passes of 20 yards or more. 24 went to McLaurin, completed 8 for 380 yards and 3 touchdowns. There is a connection there. And his QBR, which is out of 100, was 88.6, I believe it was, when targeting McLaurin on those throws. Like, that's really good. So like that's why you needed to get McLaurin back here. And it's why, my reaction piece, I said the winners, like I don't care who won or lost the deal. The winners are Cliff Kingsbury, Jayden Daniels, Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz, and everybody else on the Commanders offense because of what this means for them. And he's finally got a quarterback. Like they were 29, 53, and 1 in McLaurin's first 5 seasons. You don't think he wanted to stick around here? You don't think it's important to stay here? Like, why would you go somewhere else? Like, you could go somewhere else and maybe get a little bit more, maybe with a worse team, but you're not going to, so you're in a great situation for him. And that's why it was important for him to be here. It's why important for them to get it done. And I think the other positive thing is we do not have to see any more of the, hey, here comes Terry coming into the stadium, or here's Terry on the sidelines with the hoodie over the head and not smiling. And, we don't have to see that anymore. He'll be happy. I'm pretty sure he'll be happy about this. And I think that's a good thing because those visions, like I will say, like last week when McLaurin walked onto the practice field when we're all there. Well, he waited to walk onto the practice field because he did not want to be taped walking to the practice field because he knew that's what everybody would show. And rather than now you could get him off the field, but you're not getting him walking on with everybody else out there. It's just he didn't want that to turn into that kind of spectacle, even though it was already getting there, right? But at least now we don't have to worry about those visuals for them. They don't have to worry about it, and they can move on to get ready for the season without this hanging over the head. And you, as fans, don't have to watch that either. And I'm pretty sure that that's not what you wanted to see because you just want to you want them to get ready for the New York Giants. Now they can do that. Um, so, yeah, I think so. Obviously, this is a good, whatever the deal is, this is what needed to happen. It's always, as you get closer to the regular season, that was always going to be the deadline. Like Peters was in San Francisco when other deals would get done in this time frame. And so it's not a surprise that when I was like going into camp, I thought for sure they would get this done. As we got into camp, I started like, I still think they'll get it done, but it's not as hard a lean toward that side as it had been previously because you knew the areas that they just had to bridge and you kept, and like, would the team get to a certain point when McLaurin would feel okay coming down to that number because if their original stuff, which was around 23, 24, obviously was never going to get it done. And I'm not sure that 27 was going to get it done. So, and they weren't going to go to where McLaurin wanted to be, which was definitely above where, by all accounts, by multiple reports, by people I talked to, was above where DK Metcalf was. And I know this average it could be get to that point, but again, up to 96 million. See the details first. But again, do you really care about that at this point? And I think where it matters is down the road, they have Marshawn Lattimore, Laramie Tunsil, Frankie Louvu. I mean, guys that they're going to have to extend next offseason. So you could not get into the habit of like, and I would always kind of a little bit laugh when people say, oh, just pay the man. Like, but you can't get in the habit of just paying whatever a guy wants and then knowing other guys are coming up in the future that they're going to, I don't think that Laramie Tunsil or Louvu are going to care that, hey, well, Terry was the face of the franchise under Dan Snyder. They don't care about that. They only care about like, hey, you gave this guy this much above what people perceive maybe as market value. But again, market value is what they're paying you. So now Terry's market value is what they're paying him. But if you're paying over a perceived amount, then Luvu's agent's going to say, wait a minute. And he's going to say, wait a minute, I was the first, my guy was the first guy you guys wanted. Tunsil can say, wait a minute, you guys traded a net of 3 draft picks for me. So what are you going to do for me? So like that's why you don't want to get into that. But I think when we see the details, I think they can feel good and Terry can feel good as well. So that's what you want to have because you didn't want what you did not want. What you did not want was McLaurin coming to camp or starting the season, playing on the last year of this deal and having that be a topic. Now, I'm sure he would have handled it quite well. He's a true pro. He's always been a very good pro. But you don't want that hanging over a game. Like you don't want pundits talking about it. You don't want sports talk. You don't want, people like me wondering, what does this mean for his future? Like, you don't want that, and now they don't have that, and that's a very good thing. Now, who is this good for? Obviously, McLaurin, Jayden Daniels. Again, he gets his deep guy back. You've heard a lot of us talk about how during training camp, the offense just did not look great, right? It was not a great summer for them. Well, why is that? And people are talking about like, well, the vibe or the energy isn't there. Well, you know what brings energy? Big plays down the field. They weren't there because why? Your big play guy wasn't there. And another big play guy in Noah Brown also wasn't there. Now, Noah Brown worked out Saturday, looked good. He'll be back for the opener. Now you get McLaurin back. Now, guess what? The offense might look a little bit different with your two of your top three receivers on the field. That's how this works. So that's why I say, like, didn't want to get caught up in that because you knew at some point McLaurin's going to be out there. At some point, Noah Brown will be back. Now, can he stay healthy? We'll see. But at some point, those two guys will be there. Now it looks different as opposed to throwing to Chris Moore or KJ Osborne instead of Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown. Kind of a difference. So like that's why you could the key to me was Jayden Daniels didn't look bad. Like he wasn't throwing picks left and right. He didn't look lost. He still looks like Jayden Daniels, very accurate. Processing speed quick. The arm talent always there. The ability to run still there. Like all that remains the same. Now you give him his top outside weapon back and another top outside weapon for him as well. Because here's the thing with Noah Brown. He had 35 catches, so he was on pace for a career high in only 11 games. And then he also drew 6 pass interference penalties. Justin Jefferson, who led the league, had 8. So that was his impact as well. So there's a lot of hidden yards for Noah Brown, but it gives Daniels his top 2 outside threats back. Now you can look at it and say, okay, there's Terry McLaurin, there's Deebo Samuel, there's Noah Brown. And then to me, it'd be Jalen Lane based on preseason. We'll see. Obviously Luke McCaffrey will be there, and then whoever they keep it, if they keep it, assuming they keep a 6th receiver, whether it's KJ Osborne, that's who I put on my 53. We'll see. Maybe it's someone else they pick up. I don't know. All that will be determined on Tuesday when they make the final roster cuts. By the way, there should be a press conference for McLaurin on Tuesday morning before the cuts are made, or maybe during it. But now you also have, like I said, now the offense looks like the way you want it. So you have McLaurin getting deep, Noah Brown being able to stretch as well, and you also have Deebo Samuel now underneath, creating some space for him to break more tackles, creating more room underneath for Zach Ertz to be even more effective in the middle of the field. So like now those pieces start to fit a lot better, and instead of those two being your primary guys, those are the two of the guys that can move chains, and Deebo can still be explosive, but you can move the chains with those guys and you can hit the explosive with the other two. It just looks different, doesn't it now? And so obviously you have Brandon Coleman back too. So, and we don't have to see any more hoodies. Not for a while. I like hoodies, but we don't have to see him on McLaurin for a while. And I'm also, I think the other thing too is McLaurin can sit here and now you finish out. Could this conceivably be the last contract of his career? I don't know, because I don't know how much longer he wants to play. But this certainly is going to have a long career in Washington. And, we've seen other guys finish elsewhere, but now he's got that long career here. He's going to retire as one of the most popular players, certainly one of the most popular players that I've covered in my time here. And also then next stop, Ring of Fame. So, this is a good situation because they're better with him. He's better with Washington. It never made sense for this to go any other way other than this. And, it's funny because it just felt like with the fan base, you guys can let me know in these comments. I don't want to speak for you, but just in reading the comments, there's certainly initially it was 99-1 in favor of McLaurin. As camp went on, as we got to this point, definitely a lot different than that. But I know from your perspective, you just wanted it done. You didn't want to hear about it anymore, and I don't blame you. You didn't want this hovering over the season. Now you get your offense back. Now you can get ready to roll and be excited for the season starting September 7th against the New York Giants. So anyways, folks, that's all I got. Good day for Washington fans and for the Commanders. I will be back on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, going over the final cuts, talking about the final, I say final roster. It's still going to be shaped, but a lot of the moves that they made, and we'll probably have some more reaction to McLaurin and whatever he said at the press conference. So that's it for me. I appreciate you tuning in. I'll talk to you next time.